I loved Super Mario Bros. Stomping on Goombas, throwing giant spiky turtles into pits of lava. It was great, and I'm ready for more of that. So, here we go, Super Mario Bros. 2. Well, this is different. So what happened with Super Mario Bros. 2? It's completely different from the original game. Well, it turns out this isn't actually Super Mario Bros. 2. In 1986, Nintendo released a sequel to Super Mario Bros. On the Famicom Disk System. This game reused many assets from the original, although the difficulty was increased dramatically. Nintendo of America felt the game was too challenging for the North American market and asked for a different game to release as the sequel in America. As a result, we wouldn't know about or play the original Super Mario Bros. 2 until 1993 with the release of Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. So what did Nintendo do? In 1987, Nintendo developed a Japan-only game with Fuji Television called Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic. The game was a platformer that used both side-scrolling as well as vertical scrolling sections. It featured 4 different characters with varying abilities, and originally it had absolutely nothing to do with Mario. Nintendo decided to rework the game to include some Mario characters and items. It was released in America in 1988 and most of the rest of the world in 1989. This Mario version of Doki Doki Panic didn't actually release in Japan until 1992. Despite the fact that it was so different from the original Super Mario Bros., it was a huge success here in America. No one knew or really cared that it wasn't actually a Mario game. Everyone loved it, and it's often considered to be one of the best games on the NES. The story of this game is both weird and creative. Mario has a strange dream of a long stairway leading up to a door. Through the door was a strange new world. He heard a voice welcoming him to Subcon and explaining to him about how the evil Wart had put a curse on the people of Subcon. When Mario woke up, he, Luigi, the princess, and Toad went to a nearby mountain for a picnic, where they saw the stairway from Mario's dream. They climb up, go through the door, and embark on a brand new adventure. This time, you have the choice of 4 characters to play as. Mario is a very well-rounded character with average speed, strength, and jumping ability. Luigi can jump the highest, but is slightly slower than Mario. Toad is the strongest and fastest, but has the lowest jump of everyone. And the princess is very weak and slow, but she can float in the air for a brief time. These different abilities give the player some choice as to how they want to play the game, allowing them to decide what skills would be best for each level. Personally, I usually just play the whole game as Mario, as he's the most average of them all. In the original Super Mario Bros., you'd kill enemies primarily by jumping on them. So it's extremely surprising that in this game, when you jump on an enemy, nothing happens. You don't get hurt, and you don't hurt the enemy. Instead, when you press B, you'll pick the bad guy up. Pressing B again will make you throw him. You can even throw him into other enemies, killing them, and that is satisfying, killing enemies with their own comrades. However, it's not just enemies that you can pick up. Around the world, you'll see tufts of grass. Pulling this grass out of the ground can reveal all sorts of things. Most often, you'll pull out vegetables. These you can throw at enemies to kill them. Other times, you can pull out Koopa shells, which you can send shooting across the ground to kill all the enemies in their path, just like in the first game. Once in a while, you can find 1-up mushrooms hidden in the ground. It's definitely worth learning where these are hidden, as this game can be fairly difficult at times. The most useful item you can pull out of the ground are potions. When you throw these, they'll make doors appear. Through these doors you can enter what's known as subspace. Here you can collect mushrooms for extra health and pull coins out of the ground. These coins can later be used for a chance to earn extra lives. Scattered around the world you'll also see some jars. These are kinda like the pipes from the first game. When you go down them, there'll be something inside. Sometimes it's just an enemy and the shell, or sometimes there'll be a 1-up or even a key, or really anything. These are really fun to explore, and it's good to find out which jars have useful items in them. And that's the main idea of the game, pick things up and throw them. While most of the main mechanics like running and jumping do carry over from the first game, this new throwing mechanic really added a lot. It's fun, and it gave players more incentive to actually explore the levels as they go, rather than just trying to hurry through and get to the end. The controls are mostly the same as the original game. Press left or right on the D-pad to move in that direction, press A to jump, and hold B while pressing left or right to run faster. However, there are a few new controls added here. If you hold down on the D-pad, your character will eventually begin to flash. When this happens, pressing A will cause you to jump much higher than usual. As the princess, holding A will cause you to float in the air for a short time. This is extremely useful for making sure your jumps are accurate. Just like in the original game, the controls in Super Mario Bros. 2 feel very natural, which is to be expected as the controls in most Mario games are very well refined. The level design in Super Mario Bros. 2 is a huge upgrade over the original. In the first game, the levels were all very flat. Basically, you just went in a straight line, occasionally going slightly out of your way for a power-up or alternate path. While this game still follows the move ahead and reach the goal idea, the levels are much more open-ended and interesting. There are often interesting things for you to climb or investigate, and instead of just moving left to right, sometimes you'll move top to bottom to top, or even occasionally right to left. This creative level design leads to some very interesting and memorable levels. Like, look at this! We started out by moving left to right, then we navigated underground from right to left to reach this ladder. It's so cool! Something interesting though is that there aren't many distinct level types in this game as compared to the original Super Mario Bros. While in the first we had fields, underground, underwater, sky, and castles, in Super Mario Bros. 2 we basically just have normal levels and castle levels. The normal levels are most of the levels in the game. I classify them all to be the same because each level has multiple sections and themes. Sometimes you'll be out in the middle of a field, and then later in the same level you'll be going through a cave or climbing up into the clouds. And while this does decrease the amount of level types, it has the consequence of making the levels all longer and much more interesting. At the end of each level is one of the weirdest parts of the game. There's a giant bird head on the wall. When you collect the crystal at the end of each level, the bird head's mouth will open and you need to go inside to move on to the next level. Why? It's so weird! Back in the original Super Mario Bros., the level and world themes were all a bit lacking in variety. Everything was pretty much the same, and even when a level looked different, it didn't really affect the gameplay in any way. However, in this game it's completely different. There are really three main world types: grass, desert, and snow. Each level incorporates some element of its world theme. For instance, the desert levels have patches of quicksand, while the snowy levels have ice blocks that you slip on. It's very creative compared to the original game, which I would expect considering this came out a few years later. Aside from the worlds having interesting themes, this game is beautiful! I mean, the original looked nice, and it was mostly colorful, but this game is just gorgeous. Look at those colors! And these environments feel much more like real places rather than just levels. The graphics in this game just always make me smile. Except this part of this level. This waterfall just hurts my eyes. Just like in the first Super Mario Bros., the music in this game is awesome. Just listen to the main overworld theme. It's so exciting and happy. I love that theme so much. A lot of times when I'm not really doing much, I find myself humming it subconsciously. The rest of the tracks in the game are just as good, like the underground theme. Or the boss theme. There's even a nice reference to the first game, in that when you go through a door into subspace, the main overworld theme from Super Mario Bros. Plays. I always thought that was a nice touch. While the core gameplay style remains mostly unique to this game, many enemies that have become staples of the series originated here. These include Shy Guys, Sniffets, Ninjas, Bob-ombs, and Pokies. Today it's hard to imagine the series without them, so it's interesting to see where they got their start. At the end of many levels, you'll meet yet another character who's become very well known in the series, Birdo. And I confess, Birdo's always confused me. What is it? A dinosaur? A dragon? Why does it spit eggs? Such a strange character. Speaking of enemies, one big thing this game has over the original Super Mario Bros. Are the bosses. In the first game, the bosses were all pretty much exactly the same, just a bunch of fake Bowsers at the end of each world. But in this game, we actually have a few different unique bosses. There's Mauser, who you fight a couple of times. He throws bombs at you, which you need to grab and throw back at him. Then you have Triclide, who spits fireballs at you. Fry Guy is really annoying. He flies around the screen spitting fireballs, and once you hurt him, he breaks up into a bunch of small bouncing fireballs that you need to kill. I always dread fighting him. Then you have Claw Grip, a giant crab who throws rocks at you. In this game, you don't fight Bowser at the end. Instead, you fight Wart, a giant evil frog who hates vegetables. It's weird that as interesting of a villain as he is, we never really see him after this game. Beyond this, his only other major in-game appearance is actually in The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, though he's not an enemy in that game. It's a shame that Nintendo abandoned such a cool character. This game does have some of what you might consider to be secrets. First, there are, in a sense, warp zones, like in the first game, and these are fairly well hidden. There are 4 jars in the game that if you enter them while in subspace, you'll warp ahead in the game. These can be hard to find if you've never played the game before, but they can be very useful. There are also occasionally shortcuts. Some of these are really useful, like this one in 6-3, which lets you skip basically the whole level. Although, if you use these shortcuts, you may miss out on some items like mushrooms or coins, which is something you're going to probably regret. Speaking of coins, these aren't used in the same way as the first game. In the original Super Mario Bros., when you collected 100 coins, you earned an extra life. Here, the coins are used for a slot machine minigame. At the end of each level, you use any coins you collected in that level to play the slot machine game for a chance to earn extra lives. And this thing always annoyed me. It's entirely based on luck, so it's very hard to get more lives this way. That's why it's important to collect as many coins as possible while in subspace, so you have more chances at the slot machine. Something else that's not really a secret, but is good to know, is about the cherries that are scattered around the world. Every 5 cherries collected will cause the Starman power-up to appear. This works exactly like it did in the first game, making you invincible for a short amount of time. The final level of the game is designed to really test how good you are. It's a giant castle filled with all sorts of hazards, where you have to slowly make your way to the top. You even have to fight Birdo once more, though this time you're on a conveyor belt, which makes timing your jumps much more difficult. Birdo drops a key and you continue making your way through the castle. Soon you find the crystal and the bird head. However, this time when you take the crystal, the bird head flies off the wall and begins attacking you. Hit it 3 times and it'll stop and open its mouth. When you jump in, the music suddenly changes and you know you've reached Wart at last. Remember earlier I said that he hates vegetables? Well, in this room there's a machine that every once in a while will spit out a vegetable. You need to grab them, and when Wart opens his mouth to attack, you throw the vegetables in. Feed Wart enough vegetables and you'll defeat him. When a door appears, go in and you win! Mario will pull the plug out of the jar and the residents of Subcon will come out. On the next screen, we can see how many levels you beat as each character as the residents of Subcon carry Wart's body past, and... Wait, did they just incinerate him? Jeez, Nintendo, that's kinda dark. Well, anyway, day is saved. And now we're treated to some of the best ending music on the NES. It's just so pleasant. And as we study this rather impressive image of Mario, we can see that he actually dreamed the whole adventure. Fascinating. We are then shown a list of characters and enemies from the game, which is always fun. Although, they mixed up the names for Birdo and Ostro here. And that's it. We don't really get any bonus for beating this game, just this image of Mario sleeping, this very pleasant music. I often have some conflicting feelings about this game. On the one hand, it's not really a Mario game, just another platformer with a Mario skin overlaid on it. And frankly, it kind of annoys me that Nintendo waited until the SNES to release the actual Super Mario Bros. 2. However, despite my issues with it, this is still a really fun game, and I find myself replaying it a lot more often than the original Super Mario Bros. It's got great graphics, music, and gameplay, and a really weird bird head. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you like it, or do you think Nintendo should have released the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2 here in America? Please let me know what you think down in the comments. So, until next time, so long.